A New Path, A Soul Silver Nuzlocke, Chapter 3, A Dandy Fellow, by Tammoria. Mom, I'm going to have to call you back, I said apologetically, trying not to let panic creep into my voice. I could hear her voice yelling something at me as I put the Poké Gear away from my ear and hung up. I put the device away, with some difficulty due to my hand shaking. What did they do to Pokemon thieves? It was starting to dawn on me that I could be in real trouble. Maybe if I turned back now, I could convince them that it was all a misunderstanding. How did they find out so quickly that I had decided to keep the Cyndaquil and the egg anyway? Charlie was watching my face and seemed to see my worry. She shook her head, sighed, and said, "Well, Tammy, I'm sorry to do this to you." Before I could really comprehend what she said, she turned tail and took off running down the route, the opposite way from Cherry Grove and New Barktown. "But there's no way I'm going back that easily." It took me a few seconds to realize what she was doing. What the... Charlie... Get back here! I ran after her, hoping to reach her quickly. I was really out of shape, and there was no way I was going to be able to catch up if I had to run for more than 30 seconds. Charlie didn't give any notice of me and kept charging ahead, well past Mr. Pokemon's house by now. She made a wide arc around a large patch of tall grass as she continued desperately onwards. Seeing the chance to cut her off, I cut a straight line through the grass, calling after her. "What do you think you're doing? If you escape, I'm going to be blamed for it, you evil bit... Gah!" My leg suddenly caught on something in the grass, and for the second time that day I was sent tumbling to the ground. My face hit the dirt hard, and I felt some skin rub off painfully as my momentum caused me to slide. "Ow!" I whimpered with tears in my eyes as I slowly pushed myself into a sitting position. I just wanted to stay there, seated on the ground, just where maybe all these stupid things would stop happening to me. I heard a groan behind me and whipped around to see that whatever I had tripped on was moving. It stood up, and the first thing that caught my eye was long red hair. For just a moment I thought this person was a girl, but when I heard his voice, I realized my mistake. "What the hell is your problem?" he said, practically growling at me. Horribly embarrassed, I tried to apologize, but he cut me off. "Why don't you watch where the hell you're going? Do you know who I am?" His overreaction turned my chagrin into anger. "Well, if you're stupid enough to be crouching down in tall grass, you can't blame someone else if they can't see you," I yelled at him, rising back to my feet. I heard a noise slightly behind me and turned my head to see the source. It was Charlie, who must have heard the yelling and came back. The red-haired guy was about to shout a retort at me when, following my gaze, he saw Charlie standing by me. "Hey, Dick," she hissed, and clenched his teeth in fury. "No one talks to my girl like that but me, capiche?" She strolled forward to stand in between us and leered at him. He glared intently at Charlie, and I was sure he was about to explode with anger, but when he next spoke, his voice was almost calm, even if it was dripping with malice. "You're one of the professor's Pokemon, right?" She made no reply, but the flame on her back quivered. I thought she might take off again at the mention of the professor, but she stayed her ground and continued to stare him right in the eye. Their silent standoff lasted several moments, but he finally broke it. "I guess it's pretty fitting that such a weak Pokemon would end up with such a weak trainer." "Aw, hell no!" Charlie yelled, and for once I felt like she spoke for both of us. "It is so on. Tammoria, you better be ready for your first battle, 'cause we're not letting this dandy brat get away with that." "I'm more than ready. Let's kick his ass," I replied excitedly, deciding to forgive her momentarily for trying to run off. Beating this guy was suddenly much more important than possibly getting arrested for stealing Charlie. The red-haired guy smirked confidently and tossed a Pokeball he had in his pocket. There was a flash of red, and I was surprised to see the blue alligator from the professor's lab suddenly standing before me. "Ned? What the heck are you doing with this freak?" Charlie asked, also taken aback by his unexpected arrival. The blue Pokemon, Ned, turned to scowl at the red-haired guy. "He broke into the lab and took me right after you two left," he said. "What a nuisance. I almost had my master plan figured out to escape that place and head off some nice beach somewhere." I was getting the impression that none of the professor's Pokemon were happy being in New Barktown, and I could completely sympathize with that. Though, it did make me wonder why none of them wanted to leave with me. Charlie laughed meanly. Ha ha ha! Sirs, you're right. Tammoria here is my ticket to freedom, and let me tell you, she's not half as annoying as that brat you're stuck with. I wasn't sure if I should feel complimented or not. Apparently, Charlie was still holding a grudge for how Ned and the other Pokemon had forcefully volunteered her. The other trainer groaned impatiently and yelled, "You can talk later. Totodile. Now take down that Cyndaquil." My name is Ned, but fine. I guess I've got a score to settle here, so I'll play along with you for now. With that, the Totodile charged at Charlie full speed. "Charlie, burn that sucker!" I called, remembering how much that damaged wild Pokemon. "Are you an idiot?" she scolded me, but still complied. Embers shot from her to land on Ned, who shook them off while barely flinching and tackled Charlie full force. She was knocked backwards a bit, but landed on her feet and charged right back at him, quickly explaining, "He's a water type. My fire's not much good against him." She launched herself on him and started scratching viciously. He yelped and flailed wildly, trying to get her to back off, but she took his hits and kept scratching. Within seconds, he turned tail and fled back to his trainer. "Ugh, useless Pokemon," the red-haired guy complained as he returned Ned to his Pokeball. I cheered happily for my first victory, and Charlie joined in with me. With his fins clenched, the other trainer stomped over to me grumpily. When he was right in front of me, his hand shot out towards me, and I instinctively raised my arms in self-defense, thinking he was about to punch me in the face. Instead, he grabbed my wrist, yanked my head towards him, and, to my astonishment, deposited several hundred Pokédollars in my palm. I looked from the money to him, completely speechless, and he rolled his eyes at my confusion. "You really don't know anything, do you? If you win a battle, you get paid by who loses." He started walking away north on the route, and added harshly over his shoulder, "You're probably going to be broke soon." I would have responded with an insult, but I was still stunned by the sudden windfall. I was planning all the things I could buy when Charlie interrupted my thoughts with a noise to get my attention. I looked down to see her holding up a trainer card she must have just found. "It's his. I guess he dropped it earlier and was looking for it in the grass when you crashed into him." "Well, let's see it," I said, taking it from her and starting to examine it. "This could be interesting. What all information do these things—" "Holy crap!" I shouted loudly, completely taken by surprise at what I saw. The red-haired guy heard my yell, turned back and, seeing what I was holding, rushed over. He snatched the card and shoved me backwards, causing me to almost fall over yet again. "You saw my name," he said, eyes wide. He looked like he was about to say something else, but then he saw something over my shoulder that caused him to turn and run off again. Charlie looked up at me, very interested. "Man, he must have some awful name. What the heck was it?" Actually, I have no idea. I was surprised by something else. Did you know those trainer cards apparently show how much money someone has? That guy was freaking loaded," I explained, and then looked behind me to see what had scared him off. When I saw, I was very tempted to take off as well. A policeman with a sour expression was approaching me swiftly. When he saw that I noticed him, he waved at me to signal that he wanted to talk to me. I kept my eyes on him, but I could still tell when Charlie saw him, too, when I heard her let out a string of creative curses. "Oi there," he said when he was close enough to talk. "You know Professor Elm?" I wanted to say something, but my voice wouldn't work, so I just nodded. "Well, he just had a Pokemon stolen from him. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" I tried to reply, but he suddenly took notice of Charlie. "Say, that's one of their, that there one is one of his, isn't it? I think you got some splaining to do." Thankfully, Charlie cut in, because I don't think I could have managed to say anything. "Yeah, I am, but I'm not the stolen one. The stolen one is a Totodile, right?" The policeman nodded, and Charlie continued, lying so skillfully I almost believed her. "Right, well, the professor asked this girl to take me with her and try to get it back. We actually ran into the thief right now, but then you had to show up and scare him off. So if you don't mind, we're gonna go try and catch up. Let's go, Tammy." We both turned to leave, and I felt an increasing sense of relief. But the police called out, "Wait a minute, there," and I felt my hopes sinking. I turned back to see he had taken out a notepad and pen. "Can you describe this thief guy?" It was Charlie who did all the talking, which I was fine with. "Yeah, kinda tall, dark coat, and crazy red hair." He asked for the name, and I was about to say we didn't catch it, but Charlie, without any hesitation, answered, Dandy. Dandy? His name was Dandy? He seemed understandably skeptical about that, but Charlie assured him that it was what it was. He scratched some notes down, mumbled a thanks, and headed back towards Cherry Grove, mumbling to himself about kids these days and their weird names. 10 minutes later, as we were continuing down Route 30, we were still laughing about it. That was brilliant, Charlie. Did you see the look on his face when you told him that snob was named Dandy? Priceless. How did you come up with that? The Cyndaquil chuckled. With hair like his, what else could he be named? If he never opened his mouth, you would think he was quite a dandy fellow. I think with him around, no one will pay much attention to us, so we shouldn't have to worry about getting caught anymore. If the professor meets up with us, we'll just say you felt you had to catch that criminal, and you didn't have time to deliver his egg. She stopped walking suddenly, noticing a sign posted nearby. Hey, that sign means we're entering a new route, right? I nodded, curious about why she was so interested, and she continued. Great! Then that means we should catch something here. Listen, there's this new law that you can only catch the first Pokemon you see in each area. I don't know why exactly, but I assume it's because cities can get major income from finding trainers that break that rule. As long as we're really going to try to succeed, we need more Mons. I think I see something in that tall grass over there. Let's go check it out. Without waiting for a reply, she sprinted over and jumped on the Pokemon, which was one of those bird types like we had seen before. It shrieked and struggled under Charlie, who called out, All right, hurry and toss a Pokeball at this thing. Sure, just keep holding it, I said, fumbling around in my bag for the balls. I pulled out the first thing that felt unfamiliar, which turned out to be my new Pokedex, and kept searching for what I was looking for. Ah, here we go, I said, pulling out the small red and white ball. It was actually pretty tiny. I had always thought they were about the size of a person's fist. I just tossed this, right? I asked, hurling it with all my might at the bird. It hit it squarely between the eyes, causing it to squawk out in pain, but the ball just fell to the ground and didn't do anything. Still pinning the creature down, Charlie shook her head in exasperation and reached out to touch the button in the center of the Pokeball. It suddenly grew several times bigger and opened with a flash of red, sucking in the bird and closing suddenly. It trembled back and forth a few times, and then stopped with a light humming sound. I walked over, astounded. I caught it? I asked, amazed. In my hand, Dex suddenly flashed on. The wild Spearow was caught, it said. This bird Pokemon is said to become dangerous when made angry. It is said that they will even take on a boulder that is rolling down a mountain in their territory. It is not said, however, that they will win in such a case, and several hours of entertainment can be derived from rolling large rocks downhill and watching Spearow try to take them on, if you happen to have a deep hatred of birds and a deep love of gory messes. Rather disturbed, I switched Dex back off and stowed it away. I picked up the Pokeball and examined it wonderingly. Something about my expression made Charlie smile, and she asked, So, are you just going to stare at it, or are you going to name it? I mean, you could keep standing there with your mouth hanging open for a few more hours. I clamped my jaw shut, surprised at myself for being so impacted. I wasn't expecting to enjoy anything about being a trainer rather than traveling to somewhere new, but I was really excited to catch my first Pokemon. How about Janice? I asked, letting her out of the ball so I could see if the name fit. Charlie shrugged as if to say, Weird name, but whatever, and the Spearow bobbed its head in a way that I assumed was nodding. All right then, I said, pushing the button on the Pokeball like Charlie had earlier in order to return Janice. I headed down the route again, really starting to feel like I was on the start of something great. Sure, I had never liked Pokemon much before, but a girl could always change her mind. Besides, I had already made a pretty decent amount of money off of this. If I could get really good, maybe I would never need to get a real job. I could feel the happiness filling every part of my mind. Hey, Charlie suddenly said, you know, you should probably call your mom at some point, right? Don't ruin my moment here, Charlie, I said, continuing down the new path.